Hey everyone, got a big update to share with you in this video. I've been working on giving the game's AI employees emotions and needs, which you'll need to manage to keep them happy. For those that don't know, Lumbermill is a factory builder and management game about building sawmills and processing timber to grow your business. After adding employee camps in the last video, I started with a bit of a mind mapping sesh to really outline all the moving parts in the new emotion system. This included formulae, how personalities will interact, and the consequences of high or low happiness. I've had this in the back of my mind since the very first devlog, so it was good to get everything written down and finalised at last. Once I was happy with how everything will work and interact with the rest of the game, I got to work bringing some old UI up to date. First up, I worked on the policy window, where the player chooses policies for how the mill will operate. This is super important for managing employees, so this seemed a good time to get to work on that. The updated policies window looked like this. Pretty similar, but much more in keeping with the new style I've been working on over the last few months. Next, I got to work on the employee hiring interface. Again, this was more or less just a case of resizing and recoloring a lot of the different parts, but it ended up taking way longer than I expected. That looked like this when it was all up to date. Alright, with the setup pretty much complete, it was time to actually code some emotions. I created the necessary classes first and got the first basic need, tiredness, ticking down as the employee worked. The only problem was, sleep wasn't helping our little guy here feel any more rested. As the comfort rating of a house dictates how much tiredness is recovered, it turned out tents have a comfort rating of 0, and as I was soon reminded, multiplying anything by 0 tends to equal 0. That's an easy fix, giving tents a comfort rating of 1 instead. As you can see here, as the lumberjack sleeps, tiredness is replenished, and when I boost the comfort of the tent with a campfire, it starts replenishing faster. Happy that the first basic need proved to be working, I got to work designing some new icons to be used throughout the happiness system. I tested that with the happiness overview tooltip I created in the last video, with the smiley faces being used for indicating emotions associated with employee thoughts. I was pretty happy with how they looked, so I added them to the pay satisfaction tooltip I also made in the last video. This will highlight how happy an employee is with their current pay, so players can get the balance just right. The smiley icons I just created were too small though at their native resolution, so I created some more variations, 5 pixels taller and wider to fill larger gaps. Once I was happy with the shape, I then animated some transitions for the faces, which will just add some nice polish to the game's interfaces. I added an animator component to each of the faces in the pay satisfaction tooltip, so as the employee's opinion of their pay changes, the faces can be animated to show the change. Once I'd created the animations in Unity and set up all the transitions, the initial result was this. As the interface cycles through the faces, each animates into view, although this felt a little too slow to start off. I sped them up by increasing the frame rate from 30 to 60 frames per second, and that felt a lot more responsive. The final touch for this was to set up some colours to represent each of the 5 happiness stages. These colours are accessible to all of the game's UI, so if I change it in this one place, it will adjust everywhere in the game. With the colours on the UI, I was really happy with how that looked. Obviously this doesn't actually reflect the employees' opinions yet, but will do by the end of this video. So next, I needed a way to display all of the employees' needs and thoughts. The old employee control panel served me well, but it was time for it to go. I created some paper mockups for the 3 different tabs in the new employee control panel and began work by creating some components that will make up the interface. For those unfamiliar with the project, control panels are like mini interfaces for different objects in the game, always shown in the bottom right of the screen. For employees, there will be 3 tabs in the control panel: a summary tab, a mood tab, and a crew tab, which will allow the player to control a group or crew of employees at once. I created components for setting employee level and pay, and progress bars for displaying needs. I also designed a component for creating subsections within each control panel, and another for displaying employee thoughts that will help to understand why an employee feels a certain way. These can all be generated through code whenever an employee is selected to display information about that employee. With the structure of the summary tab generating nicely, I got to work actually attaching all of the employee needs to the progress bars. I'm super happy with how this turned out, and the system I've got means I can add, remove, or adjust new needs really easily. At the moment, all of these are just going down at a default rate, but they'll eventually all be controlled by different aspects of an employee's behaviour and personality to really make the employees feel more like actual people. I then created a new control panel component for a grid of buttons, which can each be assigned to control employees in different ways. For example, selecting trees for a crew to fell or a production line for mechanics to maintain. Now, moving on from the control panel stuff briefly, I moved on to assigning different personality types to employees. I created a C# class for personality types and started work on the personality templates. These will affect gameplay in a few ways. Firstly, different personality types will have different needs. A sleepy employee will require more sleep, whereas insomniacs can go longer without sleep. This will directly affect pay, and different personality types will get on better with others. No one likes a grumpy lumberjack, but generally cheerful employees will boost the mood of others. I laid all of these interactions out in a table when I was planning, so there's always at least one clash and one boost for each personality type. I added the new personality types to the employee generator and the new personalities displayed correctly in the hiring interface. You'll be able to make decisions about who to hire partially based on personality, and employees will let you know if they aren't getting on with a colleague due to a personality clash. This is the need labelled as colleagues in the employee control panel. It's probably about time for a break from coding stuff, but I've been super busy with development over the last few weeks, and England has been relentlessly autumnal to say the least. There's been loads of rain, so I haven't been out much, so here's some footage from a month or two ago when I went to an arboretum to do some research. This is basically a zoo for trees, loads of different species from around the world, which is great when you're making a game that's got a few trees in it. So, next I needed a way for employees to actually fulfill their physical needs. At the moment, they will suddenly stop working and go to sleep when they're tired. The problem with that is it's quite unpredictable and not true to life at all. Instead, you'll be able to set breaks for crews. I weighed up a load of different ways of handling this and ended up deciding the best way would be to allow you to set days off for each crew. So I added a day of the week monitor at the top of the screen and designed a set of toggles for each day of the week. For each crew you set up, you can set which days each week the crew will have off. I also increased the length of each day, as you do, so that each day is long enough for employees to get a feasible amount of work done in between days off, and breaks are long enough to replenish needs. And so, with the back-end work mostly done already, employees take themselves back to their camps when their breaks begin. You might have noticed that thirst was a need, so I got to work drawing a well which employees can get water from. I initially tried it with a wooden roof, but drew a few variations including blue and red tiled roofs. Once I'd imported them to Unity and got everything set up for the well object, I decided the red variation was the best. The wooden roof just didn't contrast well enough or add enough visual variation, and the red tiles just looked the nicest to me. So with that decided, I created a bucket animation, which will be triggered whenever an employee drinks from the well. I got that into Unity and set up the transitions. The final well building looked like this. When an employee needs a drink, they go to the nearest well they can find and pull up the bucket to have a little sip. I put more details about how the happiness system will affect all the different areas of the game in the description for those that are interested. If you like this video, remember to subscribe to stay up to date with development, and make sure to wishlist the game on Steam to get notified when it comes out. You can also join my Discord to talk about the game, life in general, send some memes, and take part in our bi-weekly art jams. Thanks a lot to my patrons for helping to make the game and channel possible. Special thanks in particular to Joshua, Sheshpesh, Nova, Warner M14, Chris Naismith, Pepper Trollman, Ojo Marin, Gecko, Mr. Smith, Mike James, Hayden, Kleb, Logan, BD Smith, and HPR. That's all for this week. If you liked the video, do remember to subscribe, and I shall see you next time. Cheers for watching.